Tell us your mentality, man, about playing offensive tackle. I mean, you have the potential, just to be absolutely elite.
Damn, go ahead, share your thoughts on the thesis.
Damn, look at that. Yeah, baby. That's what we do. We are the Buckeyes. What up, Buckeye Nation? What up, Buckeye Nation? Welcome to the Buckeye Boys, where we talk college football with real fans. I'm Devin. I'm excited to be here tonight. Got a good show planned for you. As always, the new norm on Monday is to have our good friend VB Coach join us for the show. So I'll bring him up here in a second. Brings an interesting dynamic to the Buckeye Boys, a little bit more football smarts than you guys are used to listening to when I try to talk about football. Been an amazing addition to the show. Excited to talk about it tonight. We're going to dive into the schedule, what that looks like for the Buckeyes, and an interesting topic. You guys might think it's, hopefully you find it interesting as well, but spring football. Kind of dive in a little bit more of what it's about. What are the individual goals in spring? What are the team goals? What are the coaches' goals? You know, those are all things I know what they do in the spring, but from the football aspect, what is spring football about? So we'll dive into that a little bit. But before we get started, guys, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Super chats are open. Super chats go to help great causes on both channels. Download the Spreaker app. Give Scoop a like on that. Same, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give Buckeye Scoop a like and head on over to the Scoop message board. But let's get ready to dive into this thing. Before I do so, please remember, I'm streaming on 2 channels, guys. I know, I'm a weirdo. If you're watching on Scoop, please go over to the Buckeye Boys channel, hit the like and subscribe button at some point in time if you haven't already. But let's dive into this thing and bring on our good friend, VB Coach. What's up, brother? How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, man. Just living life. You know, yesterday, a little bit of a tornado warning here in Tallahassee, and I wake up today and it's nice and sunny and shorts and t-shirt and, back to normal life a little bit here. So how's the weather there? Is it warming up a little bit?
It warmed up. We hit about 51 degrees today. We had some fog that went away and wound up going out for a walk over in the park today. So the first time I've been able to do that without wearing like full winter gear or anything to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I remember back in the day when I lived in Ohio, it was something special when the sun started to come up and it started to get a little bit warmer. My mood just completely changed, man. But
yes.
Anyway, things changing in the weather, and we are getting pretty close to spring ball starting. We obviously know the Buckeye football schedule already, so we're going to dive into both those topics tonight. But let's start off with the Ohio State football schedule is what I was literally about to say. For this upcoming season, man, a lot of people have graded it the hardest schedule in college football, not just the Big Ten, it's the hardest schedule all around. So let's dive into this thing. But before we do so, man, your thoughts when you first saw this schedule, like what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, normally when I look at a schedule, I always try to figure out, which one are the tough games, which ones aren't, what are the ones you got to, worry about sneaking up on you. This is not like a front-loaded or back-loaded schedule. It's loaded all the way through. You got Texas in the 2nd game, Illinois in 4th game, Iowa in the 5th game, Indiana in the 7th. And then, you go Indiana off week, USC, Oregon. There is no downtime to this at all. So it is a tough schedule. And the reason I say that is with the way the playoffs and everything are now, you want to be peaking at the end of the year. You do not want to peak in week 1 or 2. But one thing I thought was a problem for Ohio State last year was they had to be great in week 2. They had to beat Texas because if you lose that one, you're in trouble. You're playing catch up the rest of the year. So how do you win those games and then peak at the end of the year? And that's why we're seeing everybody ditch these hard games in the non-conference schedule. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a very a hot topic right now in college football because the Buckeyes, they play Texas week 2 this year, except for it's away this time. So we start off with Texas, we end with Michigan, and in the middle, you got that Indiana bye, USC away and away. I think that's going to be one of the hardest parts of the season right there. You do get the bye in between the away games, but still, back to
Mhm.
back away games tend to take a little bit of a toll. So let's start at the top here. Obviously, we got Ball State at home. I love we get to open up the season with this type of game. You know what I mean? A game that you should be seeing a lot of second and third stringers in the game, get opportunity, get a feel for things and all those. So talk about this game and the opportunity the Buckeyes have to play Ball
Yeah,
State.
it's a tune-up game. Ball State's a solid MAC program. They were a little below 500 last year. It's a 2.5-hour drive. Been to Ball State many times. The college that I went to and played at is about 15 minutes from Ball State. So uh, I've always liked Ball State and rooted for them and everything. But yeah, that's just going to be a tune-up game. They're going to get a big check. They'll take a bus instead of flying and save a lot of money, and it'll help their program out a lot. That's why you see those games.
Yeah, I like it. Nice little tune-up game here. I got the Buckeyes winning this one pretty easily. But
Mhm.
next is Texas away at them. And one of the preseason way too early polls I saw, obviously Texas was at number 1 last year. They did not end up being that caliber of a team, but they were a lot better than most people give them credit for last year, in my opinion. But this year, they're still sitting top 5, number 4. And one of the preseason ones I talked about, Arch is coming back for his year again. Hopefully, he can be a little bit better. And it's Texas, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's arguably probably the most expensive football roster. I mean, it's up there with the USC. And I mean, it's a top 3 expensive roster in college football. Anytime you see the portal, every top player, essentially, if Texas wants them, they got all that oil money. They do not follow the CSC guidelines. It's Texas. It goes against their state law to follow those guidelines. So
Mhm.
every school in Texas is literally a free for all in the NIL front. There are zero guidelines over them. So because of that, they got a lot of turnover in their roster too. They're trying to build a brand new roster, I feel like, every single year, and they're spending
Mhm.
top dollar. But this is going to be a matchup game. This is going to be a tough game. They match us up in the trenches pretty good. And it's a second game. Luckily, we get Ball State first, but we'll see. This is going to be an early tester for the Buckeyes, and we'll get a good gauge. It's going to be a good gauge for the season, I expect. Your thoughts on the Texas game?
Well, this one is interesting and almost weird in that this is a non-conference team that they're going to play for the third year in a row. The playoff game, then the game last year, now the game this year. That doesn't happen. So it's going to be competitive, almost getting to a rivalry type of thing. That was the way I feel about it. And you got to figure Texas is 0-2 in those first 2 games. They want this one bad. And the game is at Texas. That's going to be a tough one. I feel it's the toughest game on the schedule because of those things. It's going to depend on what Arch Manning shows up. Is it going to be the one that looks like the first round draft pick? Is it going to be the kid that struggled? So,
Yeah.
I really thought what Matt Patricia threw at him last year rattled him. I think it took a long time for him to recover. Seeing just all kinds of different looks, and you could tell when I watched a lot of the post game stuff, he didn't know what was happening. What those coverages and stuff were, where the pressure was coming from and stuff. So yeah, that's a tough one. That's really tough.
Yeah. This is one of the few games. I only have one other game when I look at this, and I'm like, okay with putting an L beside our name. Sorry, Buckeye Nation, but I have this one honestly as a toss up for every reason you just said, VB coach. It's our third matchup in 2 years. We really threw Arch off. Matt Patricia did. I know Matt Patricia's got a lot more in his bag, but how much can all these new defensive players handle? You're losing Sonny Styles, some of those guys. So I'm curious to see, but this is one of those ones where I'm literally 50-50 on it. I'm not even 60-40. the Buckeyes way. Obviously, it's so early. We haven't went through spring ball or anything. I reserve the right to change my mind. But as of now, I got this as a 50-50 toss-up. For the sake of the conversation, I'm going to count this as our first L of the season if I were to guess on what we're going to do. And again, way too early predictions here, folks, and I could easily change my mind here. But moving on, Kent State coming off a Texas away game, come back home, Kent State. Another one of those Ball State games, another one of those tune-up games, maybe fix some things from the Texas game that we saw, another opportunity to get some of the depth, some reps in this, try some new things possibly. So another tune-up game after one of the hardest games of the season. Your thoughts on this game?
Just like Ball State, they're a little bit better than Ball State last year, had a new coaching staff. Had some dudes leave that went and started, took the NIL route, got some money and went and started at other places. It's a school that every once in a while brings in some talent. They're in a very talent-rich area there in Northeast Ohio. They're not far from Columbus. They're not far from Cleveland. They're close to Akron, Massillon, Canton. You only got to drive 2 hours to find some ball players, and they do that. Wasn't it Julian Edelman was from Kent State, I believe?
I don't know if he was. He
was, but yeah. And then only I'm probably I'm old enough that I still call it Kent State instead of Kent. So, yeah. But it'll be another tune-up match. Get guys rolling in there, get healthy. Guys are banged up against Texas, may not play in that one type of thing. So,
man, he did. He went to he transferred to Kent State from College of San Mateo. You're right. Good call, VB coach. You got that one down. So, yeah, another tune-up game. Got this as a W. Then we stay at home, go into Illinois. Last year, I think preseason Illinois was, I think they were a top 10 team, top 20 for sure, at least the preseason rankings. Buckeyes went in and handled business there against a pretty good team. I do believe, didn't they lose their quarterback, though? I think he's gone, or is he still there? I can't remember. Chat probably knows. But.
Yeah, I had that. And the way it's going, guys are getting 7th, 8th, and 9th years. I don't even know who's going and who's coming anymore. I know I read today looking at the Tennessee quarterback. They don't know if he's coming back. So I don't even know how you do a preseason poll yet. Obviously, Tennessee, if they get him back, is a totally different team. The Ole Miss situation, he first he couldn't come back. Now he can come back. So, So, yeah, that's I don't know what's happened there with Illinois.
He is gone.
Yeah, Brett is not a guy that I would probably have in my wedding, but I think a lot of him as a football coach. I think he knows how to lead a program and does a good job because Illinois is not an easy place to win. I don't know. Have you ever been to University of Illinois campus?
Nope.
Man, you were driving forever and all of a sudden, bang, there's a city with a Big Ten university in it. And so been there one time, and I was kind of amazed at how remote that was. And, they're not in a recruiting hotbed, so it's a difficult place to win. You can't go down south and talk a whole bunch of kids into coming up there like you used to be able to. So Chicago, it isn't putting out talent like it used to. So I had a lot of respect for what Brett did this year. They were a tough, solid team. He knows what he has, and fits the game plan to what they do. So,
yeah, they got to come into the horseshoe and play the Buckeyes. I got this as a W for the Buckeyes. This next one, believe it or not, away at Iowa, and playing away at Iowa tends to be a little difficult sometimes. So this one, Iowa, with the physical play that they have, man, I don't know why. Every time we play Iowa, I'm just like, ooh, dude, this is going to be a good tester for our offensive line, our defensive line in the trenches. And they have the capability of making it a game. I got the Buckeyes coming away with the W here just because the talent discrepancy is a little bit too much, but it's definitely a game coming off of a home game at Illinois that might be a little bit of a tester. I expect Iowa away to be more of a game than the Illinois at home game would be, but I got the Buckeyes with the dub here. What say you about Iowa?
Iowa is that team that you hate seeing on your schedule because they play good football and it's at Iowa, which I hate. And, they're well coached. And again, just the same as Brett Bielema. They know what they have and the game plan fits them. They don't want to get down by 21. That's not what they're built for. But if they can stay within 10 points or less of you, you got a problem. They play good defense. They run the football. They play special teams, that type of stuff. And so, he's been coaching there forever. And every year they make a bowl game, and every year they beat somebody who you don't think they're going to beat. So you just hope it's not true. So,
yeah. I know it's Illinois and Iowa back to back again. Both those games, they're not walks in the park. They're not Ball State. They're not, Kent State. Yeah. After Iowa, we go to Maryland. I'm going to give us a W there. We can move on from that one, even though it is Maryland, and I've seen some shenanigans go on when we've played Maryland before, but times have changed a little bit there. But after that, we go away to the defending national champs, Indiana, an away game. We'll see. Obviously, they lost the core of their team, the core of those JMU guys that stayed with him. This year's a tester for Coach Sig. We'll see, right, if he can keep up what he was doing. They went in the portal, filled a bunch of holes. A lot of people left, did some things there. So it's going to be on Coach Sig here, but I do expect Indiana. I don't expect them to be as good as they were this year by a pretty good little bit, to be honest with you. I got the Buckeyes with a W here, but it's obviously a game that we're going to need to show up to. And after the Big Ten title game, just have a sneaking suspicion the Buckeyes are going to be pretty turnt for this game. So it is away, but I think the Buckeyes are going to be a little bit extra turned up and handle business.
Mm-hmm. The one thing you got to look at is, have you seen the games that they play until they get to the Ohio State game?
No, let me look this up, dude. I don't even know if I want to do. It's probably cupcakes.
Oh, yes. North Texas, Howard, Western Kentucky, and my boy Isaiah is playing for Western Kentucky. I coached him in high school. Northwestern, Rutgers, Nebraska, then Ohio State.
Dude, how do you get away with this schedule they have right now?
Yeah, I mean,
or they play Ohio State, Michigan, and USC.
Yes.
Wow, bro. I didn't even realize that, dude. That is the softest schedule I've ever seen. That is soft, dude.
Yeah.
That looks like the Notre Dame schedule.
Yeah, they're the team that they're in week 1. They're not going to be that same team in week 6 and 7. So that's one we got to kind of sit back and say, who is this team? And we're not going to know till they play Ohio State. We're just not. They could be. It looks like they're going to be undefeated rolling into the Ohio State game.
Yeah, that is true. With that schedule, they are. They're gonna have a lot of confidence coming into that game for sure. With Coach Sig as their coach, they're gonna walk in. They did get Josh Hoover from TCU. A lot of people were very high on him, not so much me, but with what Coach Sig's been able to do there with his transfer quarterbacks the last couple of years, I'm going to keep my mouth shut till I watch him play first. Moving on.
Whenever Nick Saban is telling everybody that he's the best talent evaluator out there, then I kind of go with that because, he coached under Saban, and obviously they had some talent when they were there. So
yeah, for sure. Either way, I got Buckeyes with the W here. I'll go a little step further. I don't think it's going to be close, but anyway, bye week. Then we go away. Finally, we get to play USC, man. I'm going to be at that game. I am so stoked for this game. USC has been absolutely dumping money into that football team like it's nobody's business. They are easily have the most expensive roster in college football. I don't care what you say. I don't care what charts say. They do. It is what it is. Lincoln Riley, been kind of a letdown there. A lot of USC guys that I've talked to are expecting them to take a step up this year from where they were last year. Last year, kind of a so-and-so team, in my opinion, but definitely ready. But I'm just not buying it. I'm not buying it with Lincoln Riley. I got the Buckeyes here with the dub.
He is not, they had all that talent last year, and they went to a mid-tier bowl game and lost it. So, and you're supposed to have the best receiver in college football, and and everything. Now they've brought in a great recruiting class and everything like that, but that's young talent. We know that that's not what's going to win you these type of games. So until Lincoln, does something like that, yeah, I agree with you. But I also don't think we're going to go in there and roll those guys 45-7 either. So.
No, and this is the toughest stretch of schedule that we have. Away at Indiana, then luckily we get a bye week. Well, luckily or unluckily, however you guys want to look at it, whatever your opinion is, and Ryan Day and these bye weeks, we only get one this year. But we go away to USC, which is a trip, man. I think that's the variable that could maybe mess with us a little bit, but the Buckeyes look good against Washington this year, I thought, for the most part, when they traveled out there. I was at that game as well. But like I said, away at USC and coming back the very next week and playing Oregon at home, boy, oh boy. Oregon, obviously, Dante Moore coming back. A lot of people expected him to be a top 5 draft pick. Oregon, another one of those schools that dumps money into their program. I think you're looking at – I think the Buckeyes are playing – the top 3 most expensive rosters in college football this year. I mean, let me look at this real fast. So, yeah, we're playing Oregon as the number 2 team in early preseason rankings. Texas is number 4. Indiana's number 6. So Oregon expected to be, NCAA has got them ranked as the number 2 team. But
again, look at their schedule.
But they did lose both their offensive and defensive coordinators.
Yes.
Yep. So I think that should be some play in it. But I'm just going to be honest with you guys again. I'm going to try to keep it straight up. As of right now, at this point in time, this is a Texas game to me. A little bit like that. I literally have a W/L beside this on my list. This is one of those games, again, that I need some more intel here, right? Yeah. I need to see these Buckeyes in spring. I need to see Oregon in some spring ball, Texas in some spring ball. So right now, this is the second and final team that I have on this here that I could see the Buckeyes going down in this one. I don't expect them to, but I could see it. Your thoughts?
Well, looking at Oregon's schedule, Boise State, Oklahoma State, Portland State, at USC, home against UCLA, home against Nebraska, at Illinois, and home against Northwestern before they have to go to Ohio State. They should be undefeated rolling into that. I know USC, is going to be a tough one. It's at USC, but yeah, we're not going to know much about Oregon until they play Ohio State. And are they the team that beat Ohio State last year, or are they going to be that team that we've seen get to the playoffs and just not show up? I don't know. Their schedule just doesn't push them very hard. So,
yeah,
not their fault. I mean, that's the way the conference has set it up. So,
yeah, this year Oregon's run game was pretty good. 2 freshman running backs, one of them to which we recruited pretty hard. Mm-hmm. They combined for 20 touchdowns, so they're going to have a pretty good rushing attack, at least with their, running backs that they have. Evan Stewart's coming back off of an injury. DeCorian Moore coming back. But here's the kicker here. Their entire defensive line is returning. So right up front, that's one of the notes I have beside this is you want to test our offensive line. This is one of these games. We're going to see it at Texas. They're going to have a heck of a defensive line. Well, we're about to go up to Oregon. Is expected to have one of the best defensive lines in college football next year. Every single one of them is returning. I don't know how. I would love to see what Oregon paid some of these players to come back. Dante Moore and Mateo Uyungale. Those are 2 first-round picks that Oregon got to come back, bro. Yeah. They got them to come back. You can argue whether they're first-round picks.
The NFL would make $1.5 million, or you can stay at Oregon and make $2 million. That's
seriously. I know.
Yeah,
it's wild, but anyway, that's a home game for us as well. And by that point in time, we'll know. You know what I mean? We will have been through some battles, and we will have either lost those battles and made adjustments and learned some things and come out and whoop Oregon's tail, or we have won every game, and Oregon might be what it was a couple years ago for us, that game where we get exposed to some things that need to change. Luckily, I'd rather be exposed in the regular season than in the postseason, where you don't get a second chance there. Then we go on the Northwestern at home. Got a W here for this one. I don't know why. I always love playing Northwestern. I love those battles. I love watching it. I don't know why. It's just one of those weird games that I love when the Buckeyes play Northwestern. It's I can't put a thing in it. And then next game after that, same thing. Nebraska, another game that I love to play. I'm gonna love playing Nebraska again. We'll see. I got another W for the Buckeyes. Do you want to say anything about Northwestern or Nebraska?
Shout out to my boy Nigel Glover at Northwestern. Know him as
yeah.
He was at Ohio State for a little bit. That was a bad situation, so he went back to Northwestern. But yeah, again, another team that I thought towards the end of the year started playing some solid ball, finding out who they were. You know, they went through the whole thing with Fitzgerald leaving, and that was a mess. Then he sued and won, which told me they shouldn't have fired him. You know, I still don't know exactly what happened there right now. So, yeah, I think, you know, that coaching staff is finding out who they are. I want to say they get their stadium. It's not this year, but next year, I think, is how that goes. They got a really nice practice facility right in the lake and stuff. So they're just not drawing the talent that they need and speed wise. But if you play them in the snow, which we've seen, you know, when you're playing them late in the season and, and things get equalized like that, they're a tough win. So
actually, dude, it's going to be open mid-September. They're scheduled to play October 2nd. They're playing Penn State in their new schedule, but I don't know when we play them. I forget.
In the 14th, and it looks like it's at Ohio State. So,
oh yeah, it's home anyway. I don't know why I'm looking at that. Thank you.
But
by the way,
they're going to be all over the place. So,
yeah. Matt reminded me in the chat that we got a kicker this year in Connor Hawkins, so I take back us possibly losing to Texas and Oregon. We're going to win both those games, go undefeated. Yep. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for the reminder. And last, you normally say last but not least, but unfortunately, or fortunately in this case, this is true. Last and least, we play Michigan. They're freaking bums. It's not even worth talking about this game. This is going to be an absolute demolishing. It's not even going to be close. But to be realistic with it, it's a big game. It is a not a matchup game, but just a rivalry game. And you know what can happen in those. It's just the facts of life, no matter what you think. I used to be one of those people that wanted to argue, but it is the truth that in a rivalry game, it's more likely that you throw out the talent differentiation than if you were not playing a rivalry game. I do think the talent discrepancies do come into play a lot, but not all the time. In those rivalry games, there are chances that you can throw those away. But luckily for us, they're keeping Bryce Underwood. I love that, but they did get Kyle Whittingham in the door. I do not like that, and I think that's going to take their program to way better places than Sharon Moore was going to. But it's his first season coming into our house to play. I see the Buckeyes walking away with the W here.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a program that's in turmoil, and they made a home run hire. I don't think they could have done any better. You could say they could hire this dude or that dude, or whatever, but was that actually going to happen? No, I think of all the guys that were actually going to come there, they got the best one. He's proven to be a great coach, highly recommended, everything. But man, it's like the hits keep coming with the whole video that came out this week, hotboxing in the locker room. It just doesn't end with those guys and stuff. And so yeah, it's, they can't. This is what I'll tell you. As a coach, the off season sucks. The only info that's going to be out there is bad info on you. The only news is going to be negative. because
Yeah.
you can't play any games. You can't do anything right now. So the only thing is going to be negative stuff. And so if you're a coach and your phone is ringing at 10 o'clock at night, you don't want to answer it because it's probably a problem. So they've had a lot of them here lately.
Yeah. Yeah, they got a lot of stuff going on in that program. We'll see, but I expect us to walk away with the W. Anyway, gonna be 12-team playoff. At 10-2, the Buckeyes are still getting in, but this is going to be a very difficult schedule to remain undefeated in my opinion. But it's also, we're going to know what this team is made of pretty quickly. This hard schedule, these challenges, it's a little bit scary, but it also brings opportunity. And by the time we get into the playoffs, if we successfully navigate this schedule good enough to get into the playoffs, you would think that, because you can't go this schedule and play at the baby pace that Ryan Day did last year. You can't do that. You know what I mean? You're going to be battle tested, and you're going to know if you have a weak link in the offensive line, you got to make some changes. Last year, we never really got that opportunity to go up against defensive lines like Indiana and Miami had. This year, we will. In the regular season, we're going to know, do we need to make some schematic adjustments before these playoffs or not? So that is the plus in this hard schedule. But long way to go there. Dennis wants to know, TB coach real fast, did you coach Taylor Decker?
Yes, I did. I not only did I coach Taylor, I coached his older brother. So that's how old I am.
Nice.
Yeah, he had.
I remember you said you can't mess up 6'7", 300 pounds. I remember you said that.
You just had to point Taylor in the right direction. And Taylor was a kid whose GPA was like 3.9. Like, he was making the line calls and telling everybody what to do. I wouldn't say I coached him. We gave him a uniform and he went out there and did what he did. So.
Yeah. I do plan on, I think I've already asked you this before, but one of these shows diving into that actually and talking about some stories you might have with him and some other players and questions like that. I'm interested to know, how that looked like. So we'll dive into that sometime. But for now, we're going to switch gears, talk about spring ball. And I want to start off with just this generic question before we get into specifics here. And that is, what is spring ball to a coach? You know what I mean? What is spring ball to a football team? We know what us fans like to see. We know what they're doing. But what is the coach's goal? What is the team's goal? What is an individual player's goal? Is it getting the playbook down? Is it seeing who's going to be starting? Is it? I know it's several things combined into one, but just, dive into a little bit of, okay, hey, from a coach's perspective, this is what spring ball is about.
Yeah. I've been very lucky over the years. Ohio State is great that they let you come to their spring practices. If you're a football coach in Ohio, you just got to call them up, set that up. So almost once a year, I usually go up there. I've also been lucky. I've had players that were good enough to be recruited and they went up there and that type of thing. So I had a kid that he didn't get the offer from Ohio State and he's playing at UC now, but got to go up there, sit in on an offensive line meeting, and see how that works. There's a lot of teaching going on right now, or going on in the spring. And I will tell you, things are evolving because of NIL and the portal and stuff. Spring ball is a time where you've got to evaluate your young guys and figure out, can they play, or do I need to get somebody in here, to replace them? Because if you're the third or fourth string guy in the fall, you're on the scout team or something, you're not getting evaluated. You're not getting great film. They're not really getting to be able to see what you do. So in the spring is when they got to figure out, can this kid play or not? So for the young guys, it's a really important time. For the coaches, it's an important time of evaluating your players and figuring out if they play or not. Then you got a situation like Ohio State has this year, new offensive coordinator. He's got to get to know the players. The players have got to get to know him. He's got to figure out, what can they do? What can't they do? How can I align them to my system? Type of thing. And I think it's going to be a good thing. I think, another home run higher there, but yeah, there's a feeling out process. Whereas on defense, Patricia knows everybody. And so now he's trying to figure out what can the young guys do and what can we do with these guys we had. There isn't an Arvell Reese out there this year, a guy that can do 14 different things on the field anytime you want. So trying to figure out what players can do and how they fit into his defense is what he's going to be doing this spring. So that's kind of how things go. And meanwhile, you're trying to lift weights and go to class. So,
yeah, there actually is a very big difference in this year's spring ball than even last year's, and that is the roster is fully set already now. Last year, you had another portal, right, where you came into this and you know, you could still get some players. Some players could still leave. Ryan Day spoke about it. That's, I think, the only positive about the portal window is now their team's solidified. There will be no more changes. This is who you got. And I like what you said, especially in the NIL day and age. It's like during the season, you're so focused on games, and during the week, you're getting ready for games that a lot of these younger guys, they're not going to get reps where you're able to evaluate them as much as you would be in the spring ball. So now's that time where, you know, you're having your, obviously, some battles for the starting positions. Those begin. But then also a little bit of battling for second, third strings and things like that. Maybe not so much, but you said it as well. New coordinator coming in, new players. Matt Patricia's still there, so I expect spring ball to look way different for him. You brought this up before we went live here, and that is that now Matt Patricia's way more comfortable this year. So I expect the on the defensive side of the ball to look a little bit different this spring because of that. But let's dive into it a little bit. The quarterback position for spring, obviously we're looking at Julian Sayin being the starter. A lot of people want to see him put some weight on, put some muscle on, and just be more of a vocal leader in this room. A lot of leaders left this team. The quarterback needs to be a leader, so he needs to step up in that leadership role and get a little bit more physical. And then Tavian St. Clair, what does he look like behind these big boys? Is he your backup quarterback, or is the transfer that you bought in? That is probably the most interesting part of the spring football for me as far as the quarterback position goes, is who's number two. Is Tavian good enough to be number two? Because if he's not, I think you gotta ask yourself that hard question of, is he going to be here next year with the way things are going? So anything on the quarterback position?
Yeah, you nailed it. It's, you know, the days of having 4 or 5 quarterbacks are over with. You know, you're not even going to have a 5th quarterback. If you do, he's probably a walk-on. So because the only way to get to the NFL is to get on the field. And if you're 3rd string, you're not getting on the field. And if you're 2nd string, you're probably not getting on the field. So that's why we see those quarterbacks jump ship all the time. I was lucky enough that St. Clair is a kid that we had a common opponent. So every year I got his game film when he was in high school.
Nice.
We would break that thing down and get everything ready for that team we were playing. And then we would go back and rewatch and just watch him. Like we just.
Yeah.
I was like,
Let me ask you a question about.
Go ahead.
I want to ask you about that, man. Do you think the competition he was playing will hinder him a lot in trying to be the quarterback at Ohio State?
Not really. You know, here's what I would say, because you know, again, I'm just lucky. I got to watch his game film, not his highlight film, but actual game film. See what we can do.
Yeah.
And by the way, he's got a little brother that's there now that looks a lot like him.
Yeah, I know.
That kid threw for a lot of yards this year. I don't know if he's going to be as good, but he can play. He was in a good system. That coach that he had a good system. That guy has since left, and I think he moved into administration. I'm not exact. I know he's not there anymore, but that was helpful to him. He ran a really good passing offense. There's no high school offense that's going to be anything like what he was doing at Ohio State. So, you know, it's not like he's like, oh, we were running that at, you know, where I was at. That no place is doing that. It's, you know, you're not doing that at Dublin Coffin, St. Ed's.
Yeah.
You know, doing it. Now, the level of competition on the line, sometimes I think that is a problem because, you know, if you're going out there and dominating kids that weigh 220 pounds, who cares? But at quarterback, it's not a physical thing. It's a mental thing. So it's just whether or not he can make the reads, understand what to do, because we know he has the arm. We know he has the size. So at quarterback, I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Yeah, I got you. Moving on. We'll try to pick up pace a little bit. I realized I just got looking. We did one position group. We're already been on here for 40 minutes. But the wide receiver position, listen, people might argue with me, but I'm notching JJ and Brandon Ennis as two lock starters at the wide receiver position. People want to argue the Brandon Ennis thing. We can argue that later. But for now, I got those guys starting, which leaves a position battle for the, what do you call it? The X position, I believe, I think.
That's
who knows? Yeah, no, I think Brandon Ennis, maybe, yeah, I don't know. But you got Kyle Parker, Devin McQuinn, Chris Henry Jr., Phillip Bell, Desi Jones. You got a lot of players there. You brought in Kyle Parker from LSU. You brought in Devin McQuinn, the 10-3 type of speed. One of those guys could very easily take Brandon Ennis' spot, but I just don't see that with him being a captain last year. I would be stunned if Brandon Ennis is not a starter. But you have a very intense battle in the wide receiver room. If you ask me, if you ask my opinion, I love what the Buckeyes did. This wide receiver room, their portal pickups, going to be an interesting battle to watch during spring and fall.
Well, and again, new coach, new position coach. So it's all up in the air other than the stud Jeremiah. I mean, everybody knows what you're getting from there.
Good point.
It's a new coach coming in. That kid from LSU has a little bit of an advantage. That guy knows what he can do. So, and they're on the same page. So, that receiver room, and that's why this spring is the most excited or interesting I've thought about spring ball in a long time, especially on offense because of that. Everybody's going to have to there's going to be reestablish the pecking order, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't think about, that goes against my Brandon Ennis thing, but you're right. A brand new coach, man, I wouldn't be surprised if the door's just, wide open there. And, I know that's how Ohio State operates anyway, but it could make things a little interesting in there. Moving on to the tight end position, obviously we lost Will. We lost a couple tight ends this year, but kept Bennett Christian's in the room. Ryan Day brought him up. You got Nate Roberts, who people are expecting to be tight end number one. But he was a freshman this year, didn't get a lot of experience at the actual tight end position, played a lot of fullback. You brought in Hunter Welsing, more of your H-back, fullback type of tight end. I'm curious about that. He's got some speed, got some ability to catch the long ball. Mason Williams from Ohio, kind of your Will Kazmarek, bigger blocking tight end. And Arthur Smith walking in the door. We know him and his tight ends. Yeah. We know what the Buckeyes did last year with their tight ends. So I think you're going to see 3 or 4 tight ends on the field again, but who's going to be that main pass-catching tight end that's going to replace Max Clare, who I think had the most receptions from a Buckeye tight end in a long time. We know he didn't live up to the expectations, but who's going to fill in that role there? A lot of people are expecting Nate Roberts to be that guy. It's going to be a big spring for Nate.
Yeah, it's going to be a big spring at that position because I think right now we're thinking that this is going to be a tight end friendly offense coming with the new OC coming in. He did well with that in the past. I know I talked to you before. I love that he used that humongous tight end at Pittsburgh
from George
to block and stuff. So, when you got 8 or 9 or 10 offensive linemen, slap a number 85 on one of those guys and make him, feel good and put him out there at tight end. So that's something we could see him doing. I think the tight ends are going to be even. I can see us playing 4 or 5 of those guys. And going into spring, I think they're all even. They all got something. Like Nate Roberts has potential and everything, but spring ball is going to be huge for these guys to show which one is going to be reliable catching the ball.
Yeah, I know I said I need to speed up, but I got to ask you this question. Bennett Christian. Ryan Day talked about how important it was to bring him back in the room, but 99% of the fans, based off what we saw this year, would say opposite of that. Dang, I wish I'm not going to say it, but they were not happy with his play on the field. And quite frankly, I wasn't either. But I'd say as a fan, the tight end position is one of the hardest for me to judge, because I'll watch it and I'll be like, dang, dude, that dude sucked. And then literally after the game, you'll hear everybody talk about how good, the tight end did. And it's just really hard as a fan for me to judge how well. They asked to do so many things, bro, that you
Yeah.
just don't know. Hey, did somebody else miss their assignment? Or is that what they're supposed to do? Or why didn't they do this? It's just, there's too many there for me to really judge there. But based off of what everybody else has said, Bennett Christian did not have a good year, yet Ryan Day said how pivotal he is for this room. I don't know why I said pivotal, but whatever. You know what I meant.
Yes. Well, and like you said, a tight end is asked to do so many things. Hey, we've seen tight ends, they're 6'1", 235 pounds, and they catch 90 balls at Rice University. And we say, why can't we get a tight end like that? Well, that's because a Big Ten outside linebacker would just knock him over and run and get the ball. That's it. Your scheme means a lot. Ohio State, they're asking him to block and catch play action passes. Bennett is 6'6", 250, probably going to be 265 this coming year. So if you're an outside linebacker, that's a problem for you. How are you handling that? Because he's going to be a lot bigger than any Big Ten outside linebacker. He's as big as Kenyatta Jackson. He's as big as a defensive end. So he's going to bring that blocking presence. And then can he show this spring that he can be a reliable pass catcher? I got him for 5 catches for 16 yards. That nobody's worrying about him right now as a pass catcher. If I'm a defensive coordinator right now, if I'm a defensive coordinator and he's on the field, I'm telling my guys, hey, worry about the other guys. He ain't catching it. So
not worry about him.
Yeah, if he does, who cares? We'll rally to that. So he has got to have a great spring and show that he can do something with the football. He's earned his playing time as a blocker. Obviously, he's not on the field to catch the ball. We know this. So I think that is one of the reasons why Day said that about him. He knows he has a reliable blocker coming back. So and he's probably a kid that works hard and he leads by example, and that's what you need right now. So
Yep, I agree, man. Running back position, by far the most interesting spring football position that there is. Why? Because Bo Jackson and Isaiah West are out for upper body injuries or surgeries that they have recently had, which opens up the door to Jacoby Jackson, the transfer that they brought in, who I am very high on. And then also Turbo Rogers in the room was the number 4 running back in the 2025 class. People keep forgetting about Turbo Rogers. Came in late. That's why you didn't see him up there with the Isaiahs and stuff. Different type of back, more of a scat back type of player, but number 4 running back in his class, who's higher ranked than Bo Jackson was.
Yeah.
And I think, and the Buckeyes, Carlos Lachlan went after him very, very hard, got him away from Alabama. So I expect a lot from him. And then Favorite Key, but Legend Bay is the other one here, another freshman coming in. So it's going to be interesting. There's going to be some huge opportunities in this running back room for maybe what would have been a 3rd or 4th string running back to maybe sneak their way into that number 2 spot. Because I think Bo Jackson's pretty well solidified more the number 1 role, but I expect a 2-back system again this year. Hopefully we don't see the 3-back system again like we did this year. I'm not a big fan of that, but that's just me. I'm not the football coach getting paid $10 million a year to make those decisions. Your thoughts on the running back group?
I don't think we're going to know about the running back group until we get to the Texas game. Because again, the top 2 guys aren't even going to be in the spring. And I told you before we came on, I don't even know how they can have a spring game right now. I don't know if they have enough guys at the running back position to get through the spring healthy and then have an actual spring game. And by that, I mean by tackling and stuff. We've seen the spring game here the past couple of years where there's no tackling. So yeah, that's tough right now. And I being a coach, I don't like injuries. So I know Bo and West are talented, but we're looking at 2 guys that are already missing a spring, and they're less than a calendar year into this program. So that's stuff you do not like to see. As a player, though, you don't want your reps going to somebody else. And that kid from Alabama and the new guy coming in, all of a sudden they're going to get a ton of reps. And they're going to learn a new offense. And I keep bringing that up, but new offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So everybody's on the starting line again. There's no pecking order right now. So the dudes that are there are going to get a step up on that. So I think that's going to be a huge thing. I hate seeing those tight ends playing fullback because that's not really what they do. One thing I have said for a while now, I wish is Ohio State would embrace the walk-on thing. Now, the rules and stuff have changed that a little bit, but you can't tell me there's not a slow linebacker that is hard-nosed in the state of Ohio that you can't get to walk on and play fullback, because how many reps is he going to actually get? And I think we can find that and let those tight ends not have to do that. That is, it takes a special dude to get back there and tee off on a linebacker, because the linebacker is just keying you. He's coming right at you. So
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, if that's something they want to keep using, yeah, I agree with you. But that's what I said. I'm curious if, the seventh year Hunter Welsing, or they're going to still implement that. But yeah, you brought up a good point, man. New offensive coordinator, new wide receiver coach. So there's a lot of open doors on the offensive side of the ball. Us Buckeye fans could be surprised by the Texas game or by the Ball State game. Some of these starters we see walk on the field could have some surprises there. Switching over to the defensive side of the ball, as I reported a month ago, as the Buckeye boys reported before anybody else did, I just had to say that Matt Patricia is coming back to be the defensive coordinator at the Ohio State University. Huge deal. Absolutely huge. Man, the defensive line is the only one that I think is a starter, is solidified as a starter, is Kenyatta Jackson. Came back this year. I think the rest is an open, right? Is just open for whoever. You got Will Smith Jr., you got Jason Moore, you got James Smith, you got Edric Houston, you got John Walker, you got Jameer Perez, Simeon Caldwell, Emmanuel Ruffin. The defensive end position, you got Epi, who keep sleeping if you want. That's all I'll say. Keep sleeping if you want. Zion Grady, Quay Rasal, Bo Atkinson, Kari Wilder, and Dre Quinn, with I think only like I said, like only one spot I think is solidified. And Matt Patricia, man, he'll put 5 defensive linemen out there. You know what I'm saying? So there's opportunity, a lot of opportunity. A lot of people, this is their number one concern for this team, is the defensive tackle position. I haven't really thought about what my number one concern is, but your thoughts on spring ball for this defensive line?
The thing is, Larry Johnson does a fantastic job of getting backups reps. We saw Will Smith Jr. out there. We saw Moore get playing time this year. Those guys got into games. They got on film. They've been out there. Now, are they ready to go against Texas for 4 quarters? No. But, he kind of has an idea of what he has there. Those kids aren't going to be overwhelmed, and just suddenly be out there because they got a little bit of experience. So, again, another big spring at that position, with a lot of position battles going on other than Jackson. And what look is Matt P going to use with those guys? He used that 5-1 look this year where Jackson actually slid down inside sometimes. And I know people thought that was weird, but I love Jackson going against a pass blocking guard as opposed to the pass blocking left tackle. Now he's going against a short armed guy. And we saw in that Indiana game, they were just tackling him. That left guard for Indiana could not handle him. He was just eating him alive. It didn't show up in the stat book because they didn't call the holding on it, but he was a real problem for Indiana, and that was a great offensive line. So I think a lot of him. I'm kind of shocked he came back. I thought he was at a spot where he could go on and make some money. But in the ends of NIL, it's a little bit different. The big position on defense that I'm worried about is linebacker, a lot more so than
we're about to dive into that one. Yeah. So we'll move to the linebacker position. Both first round top 10 linebackers are gone, which is wild to say. Yeah, we're going to have 2 top 10 picks in the NFL draft, I believe. And Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese don't make it out of the top 10. That's my prediction. But you got Peyton Pierce, who was considered a starter already by James Laurinaitis. And I do have a little bit of intel as far as right now. Not a lot of football being played, But as of right now, in these workouts, it's Riley Pettyjohn is in a pretty locked in battle with Christian, the Wisconsin linebacker. They're going head to head on a lot of things, and they're turned up, and that's the reason the Buckeyes go out and then bring somebody like Christian in, what to push these younger guys. You got to have that. You got to have that, and it is working beautifully at the linebacker position. But you also got TJ Alford in there as well. And you got Sincere Johnson, the freshman coming in. Mm-hmm. Again, because Peyton Pierce was on the field, I would be a little bit surprised if he's not a starter again. But I want you to talk about what you said before, because you brought up a really good point about the people that we have in this room and the abilities of some of these guys.
Yeah. Well, you just lost two guys, like you said, 2 top 10 picks. I mean, we're not talking about great players. We're talking about fantastic, elite athletic talent, to where you could ask a kid like Styles to line up on the outside and rush the quarterback one play. The next play, he could be lined up behind the 3 tech, reading and keying and flowing to the ball. Then the following play, he could bump out and cover a slot receiver. Those are things that you just can't find. And it made being the defensive coordinator a lot easier because you didn't have to sub out. Well, you're not going to ask Peyton Pierce to do that stuff. That's not what he does. He is an inside linebacker. You don't want him out covering the slot receiver. You probably don't want him rushing off the edge to get to the quarterback either. And we saw that with Reese, and people said, oh, Reese started to fade. No, he didn't. The offensive schemes were like, we have to block this guy. And so we saw other guys, especially our nose guards, suddenly get, single blocks. They weren't getting double teamed anymore because you had to double team Reese. So you can see that on film, and, we'll see in the draft how valuable he is. So a lot of talent there at linebacker. The kid from Wisconsin is proven. He's not been proven at Ohio State, but he's a proven commodity there. So I love the 2 deep at linebacker as far as talent, but who's going to be the 1? Who's going to be the 2? I don't know. So another huge spring for a position there. So
it kind of excites me, man, because Matt Patricia and the defenses that he runs, and you saw what Arvell Reese was doing this year, and Sonny Styles. And what I mean by that is he really utilizes the strength of the player. And when you look at this linebacker room, you just talked about it. Peyton Pierce has his strength. Christian has his strength. Riley and TJ, they all have their strengths. So if we come out and we see a 4 linebacker rotation, situationally, I don't know that I'd be all that surprised with Matt Patricia. It would be surprising. I understand that, but there's a lot of talent in this linebacker room. High expectations for both Riley and TJ, and some people even have super high expectations for Sincere Johnson. I think Sincere is physically ready for this game, but mentally ready would be the question for me. Moving on, corner position. I want to lock in Jermaine Matthews and Devin Sanchez as starters. I think you're pretty safe in doing that, but you got Dominic Kelly coming in the room, who, friend of the channel, interviewed him, came from Georgia. They didn't want to lose him. Dude's going to be a baller. I mean, the dude's a baller. I don't know if he's going to play outside, really good at coverage, or inside. Those things will sort themselves out. I think he's most likely an outside player, but Cam Calhoun as well. And then you got Jordan Thomas and Jay Timmons as well. Jay Timmons possibly a nickel as well, but there's a lot of talent in this room. But I think that 3rd outside corner is obviously up for grabs in this spring. You want to throw nickel in there as well. You got Earl Little from the portal, who I think is probably going to take that spot. But Miles Lockhart's in there, Desi Jones, Jay Timmons. So there's a pretty good battle as far as the corners. You move on to safety. Jalen McClain, the only one's coming back that was a starter here going into his junior year. And I am told, as of right now in these workouts, this dude is turned. This dude is not playing, by the way. I expect big things from Jalen. I expect a big jump from Jalen McClain this year. Brought in Terry Moore from Duke, the only safety to be a higher graded safety in 24 than Caleb Downs per PFF. So Buckeyes did well there, coming off an injury. His injury is in these workouts, I'm told, is not hindering him, which I was glad to hear. But you got Leroy Roker, who was the only other safety to play in the Miami game. Yes, over Fahim Delane. You got Blaine Bradford coming in, and then you got the freshman, or Blaine Bradford's a freshman, but also Kamar Bang and Simeon Caldwell. A lot of options, but we'll see how they rotate them in as far as a nickel, who's playing that, maybe what type of coverages they're going to run this year. Again, Matt Patricia is good at using the talent that he has. He doesn't want the players to conform to his scheme. He'll conform his scheme to what the players are better at. And that's my type of defensive coordinator. Your thoughts on the secondary?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think we're going to see stuff look different because there's no Caleb Downs there. And nobody's going to replace him. That's not going to happen. There's not going to be a guy that slides into that role and does what Caleb did. There isn't anybody on the roster. And there isn't anybody in college football this coming year that can probably do that. So you're going to have to change things because of it. Caleb was a kid who he could start back there in a 2 high and he would roll up and be in the box and make a hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. The next play, he's playing deep middle and he's picking the ball off. There just aren't guys like that. So I think because of that, and again, it was the same with the linebackers. Man, those guys had so much flexibility in what they could do that Patricia could just do all kinds of crazy stuff. I remember looking and I was like, there's only 4 in the box. This team's going to run on us. What are we doing? But Caleb Downs, as soon as he got his key, bang, he was in the box. So now there's 5 in the box. And then Styles was the guy out on, outside covering the slot, and he's coming off the edge. Now there's 6 in the box. So how, like you said, how is he going to fit all these pieces together? That is something he's kind of a master at, though. So I again, just something to look forward to this spring. Another thing in what we're going to see this spring, which is why I think it's going to be so exciting. So yeah, and the coach is coming back. He knows what he's got. He's got some new pieces from the portal, but a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, all said and done, the Buckeyes are always going to be one of the most talented teams in the country. We lost some players to the portal. Buckeyes did a very good job, in my opinion, with the choices that they had of going and getting some players out of the portal, some experienced players out of the portal to fill some of these holes. I want to remind people that we lost 31 scholarship players in the portal. A total of 7,000 snaps at Ohio State is what we lost in college football. We gained 17 players in 14,000 snaps. So we gained a lot of experience. I really love what the Buckeyes are doing in building this roster. We got an elite freshman class with 5 5-stars, and I think you're going to see some of those plugged in as well. Very intense winter workouts going on right now with Slegs in the building and Mick, Body by Marati Mick in there as well. I get little updates here and there, and it's a battle. They're not playing any games, so I'm stoked for Buckeye football. Love what they do. Hard schedule, but they're looking at it as an opportunity to prove what type of team they really are. VB coach, actually, I don't want to forget this. Sean, thanks for being a member for 14 months, brother. You're always here supporting us. Appreciate that. Steely, thanks for the $1.99. Rip Robert Duvall, an amazing actor, and man, dang, dude, he passed away.
Yes.
But that's the Godfather, man.
That's 95 years old. He was 95.
Dang, man. Yeah. Good dude for sure. A good actor, ain't no doubt about that. But all right, VB coach, any final thoughts on this schedule and spring ball?
One thing, and I know we talked about this before, new special teams coordinator. So a lot of those defensive players that we talked about, there's a chance for them to get on the field there, because I think this guy is being brought in, and I think they want something to happen on special teams. Well, he needs players for that to happen. So that's just another chance for a lot of those young guys, especially all those DBs and safeties and linebackers that you talked about. So that just one more thing this spring that is going to be very interesting to see. So,
yep, definitely is. Buckeye Nation, we appreciate you so much for watching. Please hit that like button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button as well. If you're listening on Spreaker or Apple Podcasts, hit the like button. appreciate you guys for joining us. We will see you tomorrow. God bless you guys. Love you guys. Go Buckeyes. OH.
Hi-yo.